president, how are you going to end homelessness, or what are you going to do to end homelessness in the world?
You want to say anything about Venus?
Yeah, I do. I do. It's a tough question for Venus, and we told the president before that Venus had come to us from the West Coast, and I think it would help if the rest of you kids here and the audience at home saw a little bit about the circumstances in which she lives.
It's not fun not to have a house. I can't have friends spend the night over my house because I don't have a house. I have just a bed. You know, when they walk me home, they're going to have to know I live in a shelter. Sometimes I get ashamed, but I have to learn how I have to cope with it, and that's how I'm living. You never know who's going to be sleeping next to you one night. The conditions living here is like, you got to get used to having a cold all the time, getting sick all the time. I hope that I get an apartment, that we get more help.
Say your prayer.
Dear Lord, thank you for giving me a new day. And if I shall die before I wake, I pray you, Lord, my soul to take.
Good for you.
What's your question then, Venus? Again, do you repeat it?
Again. As the new president, what are you going to try to do, or how are you going to do? What are you going to do to end homelessness in our world?
May I ask you a question? How did you become homeless?
I came from New York around 5 months ago, and we didn't have an exact place to go to. So we went to the social services, and from there on, I was homeless until we could get an apartment.
I think there are 2 or 3 things we should do. And I ask her this question because over a third of the homeless people in America now are families with children. And a lot of them are people who just moved from thank you, Peter. A lot of them are people who moved from one town to the other, and they have no savings. They have no money in the bank. I met a homeless couple in my hometown about a year ago. It's kind of like you. They'd come down from Chicago, and they actually had jobs, but they hadn't drawn a paycheck yet. They had no place to live. So here are the things that we're going to try to do. First of all, we're going to try to build more housing for low-income working people. We haven't had much of a housing program for a long time. Secondly, I'm going to have an inventory done. An inventory means a list done of all the housing in America which exists today that belongs to the government, which is boarded up or closed down, and see whether or not we can't give a lot of that housing back to churches or community groups or other groups and let people work on repairing it. And if they do work on repairing it, they should be able to live in it. I met a woman and her children in Philadelphia who were doing a lot of their own work on a home, an old home that had been boarded up, and they were going to get to move in it and live there because of the work they had done to do it. The third thing we have to do is to create more jobs, because a lot of homeless people wouldn't be homeless if they had jobs.
One of the things about all your answers, Mr. President, and I don't want to take time away from them, is that they all seem to be long-term. And Venus has a short-term problem, and Purnell has a short-term problem, and Shannon has a short-term problem.
Well, I think, to be fair, though, if you look at Venus's problem, it wouldn't necessarily be a long-term problem if we increased the capacities of cities throughout this country to move people directly into more stable environments. I know in San Francisco, there was a real detailed homeless program that I saw there that the administration wanted to put in, that they just didn't have the money to put in because there was no partnership with the national government. And my feeling on the homeless issue is that a lot of Americans who have money and homes really want us to do something about it and would really support our doing more about it. I don't think Americans like the fact that children like you, your mother, are in homeless shelters just because you have to move from one town to the other. Now, on your problem,
Purnell.
On Purnell's problem, it's a little different because you have to do a lot of medical research to find out exactly what's causing this. But I think you will see this year greater efforts in environmental cleanup all over the country if our program passes this year. It's not too late, but as Purnell probably knows, since you've studied your brother's problem, a lot of times these cancers develop over 2 or 5 or 10 and sometimes even over 20 years. So they are long-term problems, and we did a lot of things to our environment in the past because we didn't know what it was doing. And I think now we just have to turn it around. We just have to start cleaning up more. And I think most Americans want to do that.